In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to disassemble, clean, and reassemble your 2002 to 2007 CR250 exhaust valve. Stay tuned. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And if you guys are new, my name is Greg Hitchko and my channel specializes in dirt bike builds, moto how-tos, and product reviews. And in today's video, we're going to be rebuilding a 2002 to 2007 CR250 power valve. Now, it's important to be disassembling and cleaning your power valve every so often. I suggest every rebuild because what happens is carbon builds up in those flaps in the shaft inside the cylinder, and as a result, it can make the operation of the power valve sticky, maybe even stick closed or stick open, which in return leads to poor power in the top end of the RPM range or the low end of the RPM range. So in this video, I'm gonna be walking you through this entire process, so let's dive into it. So looking inside the exhaust port, as I rotate the exhaust valve shaft, you can see the flaps moving up and down. Now for this video, everything looks super clean because I've already disassembled and cleaned it and reassembled it, but I still have footage of the entire process that I'm gonna walk you through right now for the sake of the video. So depending on the last time you disassembled your power valve, this shaft here can be a pain in the butt to remove because all of the carbon buildup that happens inside the cylinder, on the shaft, and the flaps that it goes through. So before we go ahead, I've already got the valve assembly completely disassembled, and this is what it looks like inside the cylinder. So this part of the shaft right here is not the issue because it's cylindrical. The problem lies here where the shaft goes through the two power valve flaps. If I take them apart, you'll notice that the shaft becomes square where it goes through the valves, and it just makes it super hard to slide that shaft out because of the square design. So first things first, with a 5mm Allen wrench, remove this bolt and stopper plate, then the 10mm nut, along with the washer, RC valve pulley, and then there's another special washer in the back. So first method, I have to say thanks to Luke at Fathead Racing for this idea, is to take two flathead screwdrivers, tape them with electrical tape, and you want to get the tape pretty thick on there, and then use two microfiber towels. We're also going to use heat in this application to heat up the valves on the inside of the cylinder. So we're going to heat the flaps up for about 30 to 45 seconds. Then the idea behind the microfiber towels is to put them on each side of the gasket surface to protect that gasket surface. And that's why we use the electrical tape on the screwdrivers as well. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna insert both of those flathead screwdrivers into that slot. And then after you heat it up, use the screwdrivers to leverage that shaft out. And as you can see there, it literally just flew out on me. So with this method, you don't want to pry too hard. And even though we do have the microfiber towels and the electrical tape on the screwdrivers, you could still damage that gasket surface. So just be really careful when you're doing that. If you don't find that this method is working for you, we're gonna hop over to the second method. So the second method, we're still gonna use about 30 to 45 seconds of heat on those exhaust valve flaps. But then what we're actually gonna do is you're actually gonna grab a larger washer that fits over the shaft and grab either a set of vice grips or pliers. So here's the washer that comes on the shaft, and you don't want to be using this washer. Like I said, you want to find something a little bit bigger that you can grab onto with the vice grips or pliers to help pull that shaft out. Let's give it a shot. All right, so grab that washer, throw it onto the shaft, screw the nut down, and then tighten it down on the shaft. You don't need to worry about tightening this nut down too hard. All you really need is that washer, which is something for you to grab onto with the vice grips to help you pull that shaft out. Again, after using about 30 to 45 seconds of heat, go ahead and grab those pliers or the set of vice grips, and then you should be able to just slide that shaft right out. And you can see that with both methods. Because of the square design, it's such a pain in the butt to get this shaft out, but just be patient. And if you're still having trouble, don't be afraid to use a little bit more heat and some penetrating oil to the spot where the shaft goes through the flaps inside the exhaust port. And so now that the shaft is out, we can go ahead and remove the seal that's in here. And we're going to be replacing the seal with a new one on the install. Now next up is removing the exhaust flaps themselves, and you can see them on the inside here, and they've already fallen down for me because mine is so clean on the inside of the cylinder here. But in this situation, there's nothing else holding them in but the cylinder and maybe a lot of carbon buildup. So you can either grab a pick and try to pull them down a little bit, but in order to get them out, they can either come out through the exhaust port here or through the inside of the cylinder. You might have to finagle them around a little bit and rotate them. So see, I just rotated it probably about 90 degrees, and then that's able to slide out. I'm gonna show you the opposite end of the spectrum, but you may have to do a little bit of wiggling to get it out of there, but eventually you'll be able to push it out. If you rotate it 90 degrees, you'll be able to just push it out and it'll just slide right out. So next up is the cleaning process itself of the shaft, the two flaps, the pulley, and the inside of the cylinder where the exhaust flaps fit. So your best bet to get the carbon removed from the power valves is by using high flash point solvents such as acetone, contact cleaner, brake cleaner, or carb cleaner. And then I recommend grabbing a soft bristle brush like a toothbrush and also a wire brush. I prefer giving these parts an acetone bath like you see here. Dunk them in the acetone, make sure you're wearing rubber gloves, and scrub the crap out of them. If you guys want a full tutorial on how to do this, I've got the link here in the video where you guys can go check that out. Now, depending on how carboned up these flaps are, it's gonna be almost impossible to clean them just with the acetone itself. So you can either use a wire wheel, or you can do the method like I'm using here and using a Prime-MX rough Scotch-Brite pad on a buffing wheel to clean up all that carbon. You can use the combination of the cleaning wheel, a pick, the wire brushes to get these things completely clean. Now guys, it's totally safe to do this as these parts are metal and you're not going to ruin these flaps by using the wire wheel or the Prime-MX pads. As far as the cylinder goes, do your best with spraying the brake clean, carb cleaner inside the exhaust port here, using a combination of like a toothbrush and wire brushes to get that carbon knocked out of there and all cleaned up. With this cylinder, I do have a vapor blaster, so that made it super easy to clean the inside of where the RC valve goes and also on the inside of the head there. It's hard to see with the lighting, but the vapor blaster just worked awesome on the cylinder head itself. So if you guys are interested in really cleaning up that exhaust valve in there, shoot me an email at hitchmotoco@gmail.com. You can send your cylinders to me or any of your motor parts to get vapor blasted and cleaned up to look brand new again. So once you've got the cylinder and all the pieces to the exhaust valve all cleaned up, it's time to get this thing reassembled. I suggest grabbing some of your favorite two-stroke oil. I prefer Maxima products, so Super M, Caster 927, or K2 works great, or you can grab some assembly lube as well. And the reason why we need these oils is to lube up the seal as well as the exhaust valve shaft and the exhaust valve flaps when we install this thing back together. So first thing we're gonna do is get that new seal installed. First, soak it in some two-stroke oil. Now we're simply just gonna insert it into the slot. Then we're gonna assemble the pulley back onto the exhaust valve shaft. Starting with this funky looking nut, throw that back onto the shaft. It only goes one way, as you can see there. Next up is the actual pulley. So you wanna make sure you install the pulley onto the shaft with these two holes facing down. And this thing is gonna be facing up because that's basically the stopper that hits this little pin here inside the RC valve area. So install the pulley onto the shaft. Again, it's gonna slide right into that slot, followed by the washer and the nut. So next up is the tricky part of getting these flaps back installed into the cylinder head itself. So this is the orientation of the flaps of how it's gonna sit inside the cylinder. You wanna make sure that this kind of hollowed out concave part is facing up. So I'm gonna come in from the outside of the exhaust port here. So in order to get it into the slot, I'm just gonna rotate it 90 degrees and kind of finagle it in there. And then grab my hand in from the other side and help rotate it back 90 degrees. So it's sitting in there like that. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other side now. I'm gonna rotate it a little bit of 90 degrees. You kind of just have to work them around and finagle them a little bit and then rotate it back to the right, 90 degrees. So now they're both sitting in that exhaust port just like that. So getting a look at it from inside the cylinder, that's kind of what it's gonna look like from the exhaust ports from this angle. I'm gonna put a little assembly oil on the square part of the shaft itself, as well as that cylindrical part. So again, with making sure that button is pointing up, we're gonna start inserting the shaft inside the slot. And this is where you're gonna have to come with both hands. So to make sure the flaps don't fall out, put your right hand inside the cylinder and just kind of put your fingers on the flaps. And then with your left hand, come in from the exterior exhaust port and just kind of help lift up both of those flaps on the inside. And then you can insert your left hand a little bit further just to hold both flaps up on the same side. Then you're able to remove your right hand and slide the shaft through the holes of the flaps. This may take a couple times, a little finagling, but eventually you should be able to slide the shaft through both of the flaps inside the cylinder. So now rotating the shaft itself, you can see the flaps going up and down. Kind of a tricky process, but that's the best way I found, using both hands, one hand to hold the flaps up and the other hand to gently slide that shaft through. Then you can see the flaps going up and down on the inside as well. So next up, grab that stopper plate, slide it into the slot on that shaft itself. And then you can insert that 5mm Allen bolt. So what that stopper plate does is prevent the shaft from sliding in and out. Keeps it locked in place. Then finally, we're gonna torque this 10mm nut down and this 5mm Allen nut down to 10 Newton meters or 88 inch-pounds. When you're all set, just ensure that you have smooth operation of the valve itself. You should be able to push it up, and then it should be able to fall down all on its own. All right guys, but that's it on this tutorial on how to rebuild your 2002 to 2007 CR250 two-stroke power valves. If you guys have any questions on this process, definitely leave a comment below for me. I'll make sure I get back to you 100%. And if you guys need any of the tools or oils that I use in the video today, there's links in my description below. If you guys enjoyed the tutorial, make sure you punch the like button, subscribe to the channel, head over there where I've got a ton more bike builds and how-tos along the way. But as always, ride hard, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.